And you would just need to make sure I'm able to share my screen.
Yes.
Yeah, once we get started. Yeah.
Once it's done, I will basically get that get you either a host, or it should be, I think the setting is everybody could, or the speaker could set this share the screen. So
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
yeah.
Hi, May. Hey, would you like to kick it off, or would you like me to do it?
Hold on just a second.
Or do you want to wait for a few more minutes? That's totally fine as well.
We wait for a little bit. We wait for a little bit longer time for people just to get ready.
No, you're right.
It
It's
depends on,
actually 1 now, so definitely.
yeah. Let me stop the music. And we see all the participants are in. I believe there's no more. We're not going to have a waiting room setting. So we have 31 so far. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's 1:01. Thank you, everyone, for coming and spend some time at this afternoon, Saturday afternoon, to attend today's workshop. We will give a couple more minutes to have more people to join, as people usually start logging in now. And we just send a reminder because it needs to have an authenticated link to join for the meeting. So let's give a little bit more, a few more minutes for people to join.
Okay.
Okay, apparently I'm talking to myself, I think. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Where was I mute? I think I probably, yep. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Mei Hsiao, and I'm the president of Chinese American Parents Association of Montgomery County. And today, thank you all for coming to this workshop with our entrepreneur, Terry Hsiao. And this event is one of the many series workshops that we set for August before everyone submit their a business plan, a proposal for the contest of under the International Leadership Foundation for 2021. Remind everyone, August 27 is the deadline to put your business plan in. So those workshops we serve as your help as you build along with your groups or your ideas. No ideas is too small. So, and we definitely can hear some from Terry today. With that, I would like to have some ground rules. One, yes, is
不可以
that
我在外面看房子
if you are not
我今
the
天4点钟看
speaker,
房子
please
看
put your
4
phone on mute, okay? And also for the ones that the speakers, or if you have questions, please put into the chat while we're talking. And I believe Terry might keep some minutes or later to answer questions at the end of the speech. So keep your questions or you put into the chat. We do have student volunteers helping us today, actually organizing and making this Zoom meeting a reality. And also just the meeting is going to be recorded, but we reserve the right to either publish or not. Pretty much if we do, we will probably edit them to make sure that it's there's nothing sensitive for that. So with that, let me see. Yingxia is one of our parent volunteers that put all this workshop together. So I would like you to open your camera and give a little bit more background about all those works that we try to put together for people. So Yingxia, would you like to say something?
Hi, yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. So as May said, I have been helping with organizing the training programs for this year. I myself is a mom of 2 boys and really think that this is a great event to inspire youth entrepreneurship and innovation. And that's why I am so passionate about helping out here. And I'll just give a really quick, brief introduction to the training programs we have set up today, in case you don't know that already. And so Terry today is our really first speaker. Very honored to have you here. And Terry will really speak with his extraordinary entrepreneur experience and to inspire youth entrepreneurship and innovation. And the next one that we have arranged is the coming Wednesday with Nina Wang, a senior executive who will really coach about how to write a business plan and how to operate and manage business. And the third one that we have planned is actually very unique. It is a group of girls who have co-founded and co-managing an organization called Goals for Business. And it's amazing that they founded this only last year, but it has grown to have 150 schools all over the world. So they will talk about entrepreneurship from their own experience. How do you go from an idea to reality and expand your organization? And then we also have one speaker who has her own entrepreneur startup company, but also she's just founded a venture capital company. So she will talk from like an investor perspective, and so tell us how you can attract venture capital. So those are the training sessions we have laid out. We're very excited to really have you all to enjoy all the great insights and voice from the speakers. So yeah, that's about it. Nate, back to you.
Thank you. All right, so to save everybody's time, so now we welcome Terry Hsiao. And Terry, I will let you to introduce yourself instead of reading your bios.
Absolutely.
So you can take over the floor now. Thank you again, Terry.
Okay, terrific. Well, first of all, happy Saturday, and thank you everyone for joining. This is a tremendous program. I have been involved a couple times now, and I hope you all the students out there, you definitely grab this opportunity to participate. And so I would actually, before I introduce myself, I would actually just want to make sure that we have, this is kind of interactive session. So I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to let people to, make sure you turn on your microphone and answer it. Then this is kind of like a practice, okay? So what would you call a deer who has lost its ability to see? Anyone?
Repeat the question again. I think it's too quick. You need to repeat the question one more time.
Repeat the question. What would you call a deer who has lost its ability to see?
No idea.
Terrific. Great. Thank you so much. And that was excellent. So that was just a practice, but this is just the way we would conduct the session today, so that, feel free to chime in and answer a question or ask a question. All right. Well, so first of all, my name is Hsiao, and I was born in Taiwan. I came to the United States when I was 15. So going to high school, really as a newcomer, was a difficult process. And I'm sure many of you have experienced getting into a new environment and, kind of figure everything out yourself. I went to college, and I majored in electrical and computer engineering. And I was really fortunate, and you probably are born with this, what you think is more like a human right, but you would be surprised. My freshman year was the first year that all the engineering students was assigned an email address. So all of that comes natural to you, I'm sure, and you probably have a few email addresses by now. But I got my first email address in my freshman year in college, and so that was really, I would say, a new era. And I graduated. I was fortunate enough to get a job and work in a fast growth industry, and that happened to be the mobile phone industry. So I'm sure you also feel like that's a human right to you. I'm sure all of you already have your own phone. I worked for a few years and ended up going to MIT Sloan to get my MBA. And a couple years, actually it was just about 18 months later, I started my first company. This was at the peak of the .com era, and was fortunate enough to be able to continue, and was able to altogether started 3 different companies and have had 3 different exits. So in our lingo, in the entrepreneur lingo, an exit, it happens when you cash out. So what that means is you either the company either went to an IPO or got sold to another company that you're able to receive cash for. So I was really fortunate, and so I've been in the last year or so, I've been teaching entrepreneurship at Marymount University, and I'm fairly active in the early stage ecosystem. So if you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay, we can see it now. Terry, good.
Okay.
So for the ones that still have unmute, please mute yourself.
All right, let me get to the beginning. All right, well, terrific. So I guess I'll do a quick question again. When we say entrepreneur, okay.
麻烦大家，如果不是你说话的话，麻烦静音一下哈。Please put yourself in mute and make sure that you check your mute button. Thank you. Sorry, Terry.
Yeah, no worries. So again, let's do another quick one. So when I say entrepreneurship or entrepreneur, what does it come to your mind? And I will let if you're a student, I'd love to hear from you. What pops into your mind when somebody says entrepreneur?
People can put the answers into the chat, or unmute your mic if you do want to, and give us a short answer.
Boss.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else?
I think ideas, that would be
Ideas. Okay, good. And Insha or May, if you see answers in the chat box, you can also
Yeah,
say them for me.
inventions, business
Invention,
and
okay.
money,
Money,
new
okay.
ideas, innovation, business
good.
person, and
Okay.
business and money.
And along with that, who would be your model entrepreneur? Who's your favorite entrepreneur?
Please
let
put
me give
into
you
the
some
chat
names.
so we can talk. Yeah, or you can unmute your mic if you would like to, any of the audience.
All right, let me open chat myself. Anybody? Somebody's got to have. Oh, Jeff Bezos. Okay, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. Okay, very good. All right, Steve Jobs, Larry Page. Okay, terrific. Bob Iger, Mark Zuckerberg. All right, well, very well, terrific. So those are great answers, and I'll keep that in mind when I go through my presentation. So I think the first thing I would talk a little bit about is, over the course of 20 some years, when I was an entrepreneur. So at the end of the day, what have I learned? All right, so the first thing I've learned is Tailwind is much better than Headwind. So what does that mean? Anybody's taken any cross-continental flights will know your flight time is much less if you go east versus when you go west, because the wind is actually helping the airplane fly, going eastbound. So what this basically means is, if you're going to pick to do something, if you talk about innovation, you talk about invention, new ideas, that whatever that you pick that you want to do, ideally it's going along some trend or some policy. So for example, Biden has this infrastructure policy. Altogether, the automobile industries is moving from petroleum to battery. So if your passion happens to be how to build a better petroleum gas engine car, it's probably going to be tough, right? Because the industry is moving from petroleum to electric power or alternative energy. So it's hard. It's much easier to pick something that has some momentum going along with the wind. It's easier to move with the tailwind on your back versus when you have the headwind in front of you, if that makes sense. So when we think about entrepreneurship, we think about these new ideas, innovation. You want to, first of all, make sure that whatever you choose to do is going with the trend. And if you break it down, I hope you would think it makes sense, because would you want to build a product that more and more people would like to use, or less and less people would like to use? Or another way to think of it is, would you want to build a product the same person will be willing to use it for longer and be paying more for it, or it would have a limited lifespan, and then over time will be less willing to pay for it, right? So the answer should be clear, that you want to choose something to be your entrepreneur journey, because you're going to spend so much effort and you're going to take so much risk, and you're going to basically spend all of your time on it. You want to make sure that something that that it's easier, and it's, again, like I said, the tailwind is the best way I can describe it. It's something that helps you versus something that's against you. Okay, so the first thing, and this is the first thing for a reason, because I think this is really the most starting point, is you pick something that's going with the trend versus against the trend. So another example would be, 10 years ago, the iPhone was introduced to the marketplace. And if you're starting a business at that point and you want to build applications and services that centers around the iPhone, that would be a good idea. That will have a good tailwind behind it. But if you want to build services and applications on the old generation, like the BlackBerry, then that's probably not so much of a good idea. Okay, so that's the first thing I would say. So the second thing is when you evaluate your idea or you look at the innovation that you want to do. So I think of it as, what's your special sauce? If you're cooking something and you want it to taste different, or you want it to have something unique about it. So how do you stand out? How are you different from everybody else that is able to do the same thing? And the thing that you're doing, what is the sustainable value creation? What value are you creating? If you're creating a product, a service, and obviously the first thing you need to know is there will be customers. And by the way, your customers may or may not be the same person that pays for it. So for example, if you create an advertising business, the advertisers are paying for, like Facebook, for example, the advertisers pay for the revenue that Facebook gets. But the Facebook customers, its most primary customers are its users. Without the users, they have no advertisers. So you have to define who your customers are, and then you may also have to define who are the people that will actually pay money for it. But in any case, what you got to ask yourself is, what's the value? What's the value for that person? So for example, if you think about it, and I know many of you probably has Facebook account or Instagram account, and then what I would ask is, well, what's the value that you receive when you're using your Facebook or Instagram application, right? And only if that value is big enough, you're going to continue to use it. And what's the special sauce about it? What's the special sauce of Facebook? In that case, the special sauce of Facebook is, once you build your friends network, it's hard to leave, right? Because that's where all your friends hang out, and that's where you get all your updates from your friends. So it's hard for you to leave Facebook and go to another platform, because then you have to effectively find your friends over again, or have to make new friends. So the second thing I would say is, remember the kind of come to the basic, which is, why would your customers use your service? What's the value that you're creating for them? And is there something special about it that you could do versus somebody else? So those are the important questions. All right, I put this up here as kind of just as a light joke. So you see this comic, which is, by the way, this is very common. Particularly, I did my graduate work at MIT. A lot of times you see there's a lot of solutions that are very technical. There's what people call is a technology looking for a problem. In this case, this says, well, my team has created a very innovative solution, but we're still looking for a problem to go with it. So what I would propose is, we should start with the problem, and look for a solution, look for a technology or innovation that solves the problem. Very well. So the next thing I would talk about, and obviously this is when you start with your entrepreneur journey. I would call this sort of the first half of the battle, right? The first half of the battle is you're gonna struggle to reach a product market fit, and what that means is you know who are going to use what we talk about, the value you create for the people who will use your product, and that's the user base. And then you got to create a product that they want to use, and that creates a value for them. And in the entrepreneur lingo, we're calling that product market fit. So you create a product, and does that fit the market you're going after? And that, what I would say, is the first half of the battle. And then which we won't go into the second half of the battle, but I'll just mention what that is. The second half of the battle is how to scale it. It's once you reach the product market fit for a particular group of people, then what you got to do is then figure out how to scale that, is how to reach other people, maybe different demographics or different interests or whatever the case might be. But most importantly, for most entrepreneurs, they don't ever get past. They don't ever actually reach this stage, which is a product market fit. So when you hear about 90% of the startups fail within 3 years, and that's basically what happens. 90% of the startups don't reach product market fit. So this is really important. And the process of the entrepreneurship journey, at least for the first half of it, is your continuous struggle, because you create a product. Is that a product the market is looking for or is willing to pay for? So that is the most important goal as you start the entrepreneur journey. My last simple lesson is the journey is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not something you focus your energy on for 3 months. It's like sometimes for a project, you could just you could do that and complete a project. This is generally a much longer process. Like I said, we mentioned 90% of startups fail without reaching product market fit in 3 years, and that's a marathon. It's really difficult. So going in, you have to understand that it's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and it's a roller coaster ride. So emotionally, you need to be able to expect it. And I have a chart, I have a graph that kind of shows typically shows the emotional journey of entrepreneurship. So they started out as, wow, I got this great idea, I'm really excited about it, I got other people excited about it, that's going to be fun. And then and then as you go through, it's like, oh, it's actually harder than I thought. There's all these problems that we got to find a solution for. And then at some point, you're going to want to give up. It's going to feel like it's so hard that like you don't want to go forward anymore. And you're going to get to a stage where you're going to doubt yourself, and you're going to doubt everything you know. And that's kind of the valley that some people call it the dark swamp of despair. The idea was, and by the way, this is the same process. When you mention Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all of them have gone through this process. Elon Musk, when he's known for Tesla, and he would tell you, he almost gave up. He almost ran out of money. He almost gave up, and it was in his mind a couple breaks that saved Tesla. So if you're able to sustain and get to that product market fit, you will come out the other side and you'll be like, oh, okay, that was hard, but I was able to get through it. So this emotional journey is what you got to expect going in. You got to make sure that you're mentally prepared for it. There's going to be ups and downs. All right, so I'm going to continue to pick it up. So the next section I want to talk about is, I think what mostly what you're here to learn is what I think are the important skill sets that would make you successful. So let's just go through that. So the first thing is, I would call it sort of the team unity. You've probably heard of this African saying that if you want to go fast, you go by yourself. If you want to go far, you want to go with a group of people. So the first thing you got to think about when you have this idea, or if you think you have this innovation you want to create, is who do you need to do it with? The most important thing, and of course, the biggest hurdle a lot of people think is raising capital, right? And I thought the same way, honestly. When I first got started, I was, like the common thought was, oh, if I can raise money, if people give me a couple $1 million, all the problems will just go away. But there's a lot of steps to kind of get to raising that capital. The first thing you got to do is you got to convince yourself that's a good idea, right? And then we can talk a little bit more about the different ways you could figure it out, which we'll talk a little bit about in this session. But the first thing is you got to convince yourself that your idea, that whatever your passion, that you believe is worth doing, you're ready to go, right? You convince yourself, you're bought in, you're all in. The second thing you need to figure out is, well, how do you convince some other people? This may be your friends and family, this may be your classmates, or this may be your professor, whoever who you want to come support you, right? And then you got to actually convince them that it's a good idea. And they'll probably have some questions that you have not thought of. And going through that process will help figure out whether you have actually completely convinced yourself, because some other people come up with questions that that maybe you haven't thought of. So the first thing is you got to find a group of people, not just yourself, because you're not going to go very far. So the first thing to do, if you're going to be successful, is have the ability to attract and convince other people to come do something with you, whatever that thing is. Okay, so in that case, I'll talk a little bit about, some of you may have heard the term, or feel free to Google the PayPal Mafia. And this is very interesting because, all these people, they met while working at PayPal, and they ultimately started all these different companies that we know of today. You probably know about Yelp, YouTube, Tesla, Square, and some of these other important companies and investors. They all met working together at PayPal. And PayPal itself is a merger of two different companies. So you see Max Levchin here on the bottom. You see Elon Musk, of course. So they combined their companies together that created the PayPal. So the idea was, it's not something that the first thing about entrepreneurship to think about is, particularly if you have anything to do with with scale or technology, is how do you come up with the people that's going to come help you, because by yourself you can only do so much and be able to accomplish so much. And this is why I think in this competition you're required to have a team. All right, the next thing that's really important is the concept of first principle. And what that is it's the most basic, your most basic theories or your most basic assumption that is not deduced from something else. It's something to be true, and that may not be something that other people agree with you. So for example, in Elon Musk's case, when he started Tesla, he wanted to basically build a much better energy source that powers the biggest source of pollution in our lifetime, which are the automobiles. And his first principle was the technology and the cost will come down for the cars to be able to be powered by electricity. Of course, that was obviously a difficult process, but you got to have your first principle. You can't sort of just follow other people, or and not believing in the most basic theory or assumption that you believe in. So the first principle at its core is something that is very basic that you believe in, that's going to drive everything else. And then if you have that first principle, and if you truly believe in it, and that is the reason why you will have no fear in doing it. because you believe it. And you can come up with many examples for that. And a lot of times, what we'll say is, I think, Peter Thiel in his book, 0 to 1, the very famous question he posed was, what do you believe to be true that not many other people believe, right? And that will be something most likely to be an example of a first principle. So Elon Musk, for example, he believes in his lifetime, we could develop enough space technology to land and colonize in Mars, for example, right? So that would be a first principle. All right, moving along. Oops. Okay, so some of you said Elon Musk was your most favorite entrepreneur. So let's look at Elon Musk. He was born in 1971. He sold his first computer program at 12. All his accomplishments, but this is what he said. I think we can learn from. What he said to entrepreneurs are, you need to work really hard. Number 2 is you got to have a high pain threshold. We talk about this emotional journey, right? This dark valley of despair. You got to add value to society. We talk about this value creation to the customers, but at large, find a way to add value to people around us. You'll be willing to take risks, make difficult decisions. You got to be able to attract great people, which is what we talk about with the team unity. And you got to be able to constantly seek criticism, right? Because you need other people to have different views that you don't have. The next one is, don't just follow the trend. We said we got to pick the trend so that you're not going something that's against the trend. But at the same time, you don't just want to follow it. You want to actually, you want to have some first principle about the trend that you believe in. And then you got to be able to rise from critiques. So those are the things that Elon Musk would want to teach us about entrepreneurship. The next one is, it's action. The first stage is to be thoughtful, right? So if you have an idea, you have an innovation, you want to be thoughtful. And then you want to be able to turn that into action. And then from the action, hopefully you do it constantly enough so that, that becomes a habit. And once you be able to do that consistently, that's how you drive results. So, I want to talk a little bit about that. All right. Well, so at this point, I just want to open up and make sure that this is making sense to you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now, actually, before I go on to the last piece.
Hey, Terry,
Yes.
if there's nobody typing in the chat, so I will take the lead to ask the question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Feel free to ask any questions up to this point so that I have a sense of, the audience's response.
Yeah, I put a little bit statistics in there, right? We have a lot of middle schoolers, a lot of high schoolers. So they all, and then they seem to be very energetic. And I think this is probably the best time they can work really hard because they're a bunch of energies around. And we have about people from 16 states.
Wow.
So my question to you is that what makes you go for entrepreneurship? Like why you make that decision that you make when you first, and then for the first 5 years, how many times you think about quitting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me handle the first one. My why was, and I'm actually going to cover in this next section, but I'll talk about it now, is I was just curious. I was really just very curious of how companies get started. So when I worked for my first company, and by the way, some of you would know the company. The company name is Comcast. That's my first job. So when I worked at Comcast, And it was really interesting because it was a publicly traded company, and yet it was run like a family business. I remember signing a birthday card for the founder and CEO in the office, which of course, for public companies that probably never happens. But I was really just curious of how a company got started and was able to actually, turn into a public traded company. Like what, like how does that process work? And interesting enough, growing up, I had zero connection with anything entrepreneur. My dad was an engineer, my mom's the teacher. They both have a regular salary, and none of our family members like had a business or like was an entrepreneur. So so all of you are much more ahead than where I was in at your stage, middle school, high school. I didn't know anything about, I probably never even heard of the word entrepreneur, to be honest with you, and I wouldn't know what that means. So number one is, it doesn't really matter. Entrepreneur turns out to be really more of a mindset. Is to have the initiative to get something started. That's what it means to be entrepreneurship. So in that sense, you don't necessarily quote unquote have to be your own boss, right? You could be an entrepreneur. You can apply entrepreneur skills and spirits while working for a company. If you start a project, if you start a club at your school, if you start a fundraiser, you're an entrepreneur, because starting something, all the skill sets that you would need as an entrepreneur is the same thing as whatever you're starting. The point is you're responsible to start it and for the early traction and success of that journey. The second thing is, well, first 5 years, I would say, first 5 years, that's a long time. So I don't, like when you do when you're an entrepreneur, I don't think any of us necessarily think of 5 years time frame. We probably think more like 5 weeks or 5 months at the top.
Wow, 5 weeks and 5 months.
Yeah,
wow.
Because there's so much you're doing, right? You're probably looking at it weeks at a time. And it takes many months for you to reach what we call the product market fit. And there's so many reasons you want to quit too, right? So the first reason might be, it's like you look at your own idea, it's like, oh, the idea actually sucks, or whatever the case might be. Sometimes you've gone so far, right? Sometimes you've gone so far of you got the money, you got the team, you got the product, you got everything going for you, and yet no customer is buying or no customer is using, right? So there's so many reasons.
用哪个键呢？录屏。哦。
Host can mute everybody. Host can mute everybody.
Yeah, the host may be able to mute everybody if you want. Yeah,
Mute
that might
everybody.
be easier. Okay, in any case, so yes, there are going to be lots of opportunities for you to feel really down on yourself and want to quit. But anyhow, so I just want to make sure that we got a little bit of questions in. And of course, if you're a student, I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to run through the last section relatively quickly so we can get to the Q&As. So the important skill sets that I think you need to possess. So the first skill set is the ability to learn. It's the ability to be coached. So the coachability is really important. So what does that mean? Well, that means actually, what used to be important is the encyclopedia, is the library. Nowadays, it's just simply Google, right? You can learn everything you need to learn. As you know, a lot of us probably use YouTube for that. Anything you need to learn, somebody created a video on YouTube, or somebody created an article that you can find. But what's also important is you got to have this ability to absorb and also be uncomfortable, because that's what the coachability means. People are going to push you out of your comfort zone, and your ability to absorb it and increase and expand your potential is a really important skill set that you need to learn. Okay, not to limit, just try not to limit yourself. Open your mind to be open-minded, and be comfortable with uncomfortable, right? If somebody push you outside your comfort zone, that's the opportunity for you to expand, and so you should embrace it and appreciate it. The second thing is what I said earlier, is that deep curiosity. If you're deeply curious about something, so for Elon Musk, he's deeply curious how to build these rockets and how to get to Mars and then colonize, right? If you're so deeply curious about something, you're gonna figure out everything how to do it. So for Elon Musk, if you read his story, his first attempt was to go buy like a rocket from Russia to get started, right? So you gotta like just figure out everything how to get started. And if when that deal fell through, and then once he understood how the rocket works, he's like, well, I think I could build it, right? So if you're deeply curious about something, you can do it. So I pull a quote here. Obviously everybody knows Albert Einstein, and this is what he said, right? I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. So that is the talent, actually. That is the skill, actually, that you need to develop. Similarly, and I think this is really important because people don't talk about this, but I believe this deep curiosity produces grit that allows you to overcome the valley of despair. So that deep curiosity is going to stick with you. It's going to bug you so much that you're going to have that passion and perseverance to get past the obstacles, to kind of go through the up and downs and be able to sustain the downs of the roller coaster. And the last one here is empathy. The empathy is really the ability to relate. So why is that important? Well, when we say you gotta come up with the support around you, right? The support might be your team members, your investors, or your customers. So do you have the ability to think from the position of your customer? Right? What if you're creating a value for your customer? Can you actually articulate? Can you actually quantify it? So the empathy is going to amplify all these things that's important. So the empathy ability is important on itself, and then that ability is going to actually help you. So for example, if you're negotiating a contract with a customer, or if you're negotiating a contract with your investor, well, that empathy skill allows you to see things from this other positions, and that allows you to have a better outcome. Okay. All right. So that's really all I have. And I never end without recommending a couple of movies that I believe it's not only fun, but really informative if you want to learn about entrepreneurship. And some of you said Mark Zuckerberg, so hopefully you have seen the movie. It's called Social Network. The second one is a documentary. You can find it on Netflix. It's called Fire Festival. And then the last one is The Founder, is the story about the biggest fast food chain, which is McDonald's. So if you have not seen those three movies, I recommend them. If you have seen them, I recommend you watch it again from the view of an entrepreneur. All right, with that, I thank you so much for joining, and I hope that wasn't too boring for you. And you could actually ask me any questions right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Terry. I learned a lot. I'm trying to make all the notes, like all those things you talk about: empathy, deep curiosity, ability to learn, and coachable, to observe. There's so many, actually, a lot of Chinese say 干货, very solid information's in there.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, so we open the mic. So if any audience has any questions, please feel free. I think it will add value when Terry spent all those times that we have some question for him, right? If we're all silent, that means that we might not be actually as engaged as we are. So I would love to hear, especially for young folks, feel free to ask any question for him. And also I welcome everybody put into the chat. So please do so. Okay, so first question here. Have you ever started your own company?
Yes. Yes. I started 3 different companies. My first company, actually, many of you probably still use it on a daily basis. If you have, if you send an SMS or a picture message to another friend, and if your friend is on a different network than you are, so for example, let's say you're on AT&T or your friend is on Verizon, that message actually went through the first company that I had created.
Wow.
So yes, so I've done 3 different companies. Obviously, I've started, different organizations as well. So yes, from purely a company perspective, I founded three companies and was fortunate enough to have a positive event from those 3 companies.
Okay, another question is, how many people start new companies every year? Probably in the US, I would say, or, probably not.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I believe there's like 3 million or so businesses that gets funded every single year. I could be wrong, but Google is your friend. I'm sure you can find the statistics somewhere. But yeah, it's a big number. Another number is, I think 85% of new job creation come from startups or early stage, or small companies or small businesses, if you would. So it's a very critical part of our economy.
Oh, and another question is that could entrepreneurship be taught or learned?
Yes, absolutely. And otherwise I wouldn't be teaching entrepreneurship at the college level.
That's
yes.
so true.
I wouldn't have a job, right? I wouldn't have a job if I couldn't learn. But there's definitely genetic, right? There's definitely genetic impacts as well.
There's some talents, like there's some people born to be.
Absolutely. So for example, if you're, the fact that you're asking questions, that's displaying entrepreneurship initiatives. So yeah, so those are all skills that could be learned. Absolutely.
How many people were in your team at the beginning? I would say that probably back to your first company. How did the team grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way the teams grow is you find the smartest people that you can attract. I see Kelly on here. Kelly, can you turn on your mic? Can you say hi to everyone?
Hi.
Okay, so Kelly's dad is my partner for my first company. In fact, we decided to work together again. So the way I went around and look for people is I went to the people I know, and I asked them who is the smartest or who is the best person in this field that you know of. And then that's how I connected with Kelly's dad and began working with them. Oh, there's Kirk right there. Hi, Kirk.
Hi.
Yeah. So Kirk was the first person I found in my network or in my extended network that that started my first company with me.
So yeah, I'm the smartest, but I'm definitely not the smartest nor the second smartest. But definitely, I think working hard and persevere through challenges. It takes a lot of grit for sure.
Yep.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kurt.
That's very, very nice that you have that network. A next question. I have a serious question, but I do want to give opportunity to the audience first. Yes. So what did you do if your company is in a bad situation? I guess when you mean bad situation, you probably need to define that too.
Well, so watch Fire Festival. And then I think you'll learn a few things. I think the documentary will also teach you what not to do. So yes, watch the movies and the documentary. I think you will help answer some of those questions for you.
All right. So and then the next question is, what's your biggest concern before putting a new idea into action? And how did you determine the feasibility of it?
Yeah, no, that's great. In fact, that's the fourth semester that I'm teaching is exactly that. It's the ideation to product market fit. So yes, is how do you qualify your idea? And there's many different ways to do that. But most importantly, if you go back to what I was talking about, number one is what's the value creation for the product that like whoever your customers or your target users, what is the value and how and how do you make that value sustainable? What's your special sauce that that others can't simply do the same thing? And the other thing that's really important is is just, well, the starting point is the market, right? Is the market significant enough for you to have a business? So sometimes maybe it's a hobby, right? If there's only 10 people in the world who likes what who wants to do the same thing that you're creating, that's a hobby, right? But if you want to turn it into a business, you got to think about this, right? So, let's say a successful business be able to go IPO, let's say you need $100 million of revenue a year. But if there's only 100 people you can get as your customer, they each will have to pay you $1 million for you to get there. So is that realistic, right? And then obviously, if you can find 100 million people to want to use your service, all you need is $1 from them a year, and that's a much lower bar to reach. So you got to think about, if you want to create a business, it's the target size of your customers and how much they will be willing to pay you, and that determines the size of your business. And if that's too small, it's probably not a good starting point.
All right. And I guess this is probably related to the same questions. How did you get an investor to invest into your company if you just have an idea? I guess it probably goes to what you just answered, saying that how big the market is out there. How did you see your potential product values to what, right?
But I would say this, right? And let's be realistic. If you're a high school student, or even if you're just a recent college grad, it's probably unlikely you're going to raise any capital just with an idea. And I've never raised, like most people don't raise money on an idea. You probably can only raise money with at least a demo, most likely a product, right? Unless you have a demo, it's very difficult to raise any money.
That's quite interesting. Another question: do countries help the entrepreneurs? I guess that means there may be some government policies or something in general.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of different programs. There's lots of different funding. Every level of the government have different types of funding. You got SBA grants, NSF, you got all kinds.
I think the SBA and NSF might be a little bit new to the people. I believe what you mean is the Small Business Administration for the federal government. And also, is that the National Science Foundation or something?
Yes, that's a National Science Foundation.
Or even Defense Department has all those research.
But even every state has an organization that helps the entrepreneurs. Maryland has, I forgot what's it called, but TechRow, I think it is.
Okay, so I think that I'm sure everybody can Google, and then if they find out, but it exists, right?
Oh,
I think people just need to be aware. It
Absolutely,
exists.
absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Next one. I was waiting my question to be asked, but people stop piling questions, so I have to respect that.
Okay.
Next one. How did you get new ideas for your business? Did you just suddenly think of them, or did you have to develop them over time?
Oh, that's a great question. I would joke, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, like every shower you take, you come up with a new idea. Or every time you go to the bathroom, you come up with a new idea. Some people just have ideas. Some people have more ideas than others. But obviously what's difficult is to qualify and develop those ideas and then be able to turn that into a business. Again, ideas is not worth a lot, right? So we had that one slide that says, thoughtful. Maybe I can even change it to ideas. Like ideas to action. So if you're staying at the idea stage and never get to action, it's just as good as nothing.
Yeah, it's true. But I guess you're talking about qualifying your idea. That means that you have to see the market potential and things like that. So I guess that's
and there are different things that we teach, right? In the entrepreneur class, there's the design thinking, there's the lean startup methodology, right? There's all kinds of things that do help you to qualify your idea. Obviously, with the limited time today, we won't go into the details of those, but yes, there are different processes that you can use to help qualify your idea.
We have at least, I would say, 15 questions so far already.
All right, well, why don't we just get through maybe like 3 or 5 more?
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, it's, well, you definitely in the entrepreneurship time zone. Usually for me, seminars means 2 hours. So you get the all cut it into 1 hour. That's awesome. Yeah. Since you talk about Headwind and Tailwind, what did you think would be future trend technology-wise?
Oh, I love that question. This is
Kelly. That's from Kelly.
Kelly's my girl. So I have this. I talk about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And of course, I would also do a prop for Kathy Wood, who runs one of the very famous ARK fund that invests in these future trends. And so I talk about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The A is obviously for AI, machine learning. B for blockchain. C, I would say it's for cyber integrity or cyber security. D is for digital transformation. That basically means every business today, particularly post-pandemics, is moving from either a purely online or offline business to a hybrid one. Even like a restaurant, which never used to be quote unquote online, now has to have a significant online presence, right? E for energy or alternative energy, or call it smart energy. And FG is actually 2 things. It's actually the one thing. It's 5G. So that's my A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The future trends.
You just share your secret investment portfolio for the future.
I mean, there's obviously other interesting things happening. I would say, gene editing is obviously really interesting. There's other types of technology that are innovation that's really I mean, space technology for one is incredible. But yeah, but I just use A, B, C, D, E, F, G to give people an example of, like some of the hot trends.
Wow. Okay, so last two questions.
Okay.
Hold on just a second, let me check. How do people find your business?
Well, so that depends on which people, right? So if it's customers, a lot of times you need to figure out how you find them, as much as they find you. Again, it depends on your B2, like B2C, which is direct to consumer business, or are you a B2B, more of an enterprise business? But generally, you need to have both a push strategy and a pull strategy. A push strategy is how do you actively identify who should use your product or who should know about your product, and go find them and pitch them your product. And then the pull strategy is how do you build content strategies? How do you build, search engine optimization so that people can find you? So obviously depends on what that is, right? So for Elon Musk, for example, think about his SpaceX program, right? All he needs to do is get NASA to fund him. So he's not going to wait at home until NASA reaches out to him, right? He's got to actively go find who he needs to talk to at NASA and convince them, right? So again, it depends on your what you're doing. Now for investors, very much the same thing. You need to build a brand, and ideally the investors come find you. So a lot of times you have to actually do the work and figure out which investors you want to talk to and go find them and go talk to them.
Thank you. It's very helpful. The last question for today, I will keep mine privately. Oh, also, Terry, do you mind that you can share your PowerPoint on the chat that if people are interested, or they can just somehow, some way, go Google and find them? Because I feel those slides are very helpful.
Yeah,
but it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to share the slides. I mean, again, the slides just have some basic words in it, right? So if it's helpful, that's fine. I'm happy to. Actually, I'll just give it to you, the organizer, and then you can
Sure.
figure out how.
Yes,
you can
yes,
figure out
we
how to
do
share
have
it.
that. Thank you. We do have it.
But that's fine. I'm happy to share them.
Okay, thank you. So the last one, how is empathy developed? Is it innate or something to be learned? How did you keep sight of it in the face of other elements such as money, power, or greed, I would say?
Yeah. So so the first thing I would recommend, there's an excellent talk on empathy on TED. So I believe most of you know what TED is.
Yeah, that's the public speaking talk, like people talk, give a
Correct.
speech.
Actually, this past week was TED conference in California. But yes, if you Google TED empathy, you're gonna find this great talk, and I forgot the name of the guy, but it's actually part of my my class exercise was actually learning more about empathy. Yes, absolutely, it's something to be learned. A lot of times it's like, hey, and obviously you can practice it. Actually, all of these students out here, please practice it, right? So when you're at home, every day, think about how your dad or your mom think about it. Think about how your sibling think about it. Think about how your teachers will think about it. Whatever you do, whatever your actions are, put yourself in their shoes. And that's how you practice empathy.
That is so true. I think there's nothing better than this conclusion about that, because I think business at the end is about helping the people, right? Making something to meet the world's need, and people still fundamentally needs that empathy for all the understanding, putting yourself into other people's shoes. It's very critical.
Yeah.
All right. So with the time,
Okay.
I know that it's been, an hour, and Terry, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We asked Nina, our another joint organizer from International Leadership Foundation. Did you have any last words before we conclude today? Probably mute, or Nina already jumped off the line. All right. If not, then Terry, we will be in contact to get the PowerPoint and just to give you one thing is that total we have 95 people registered today, and the
Yeah, that's
highest
awesome.
I think place is about 70. So you do have like several full classes today.
All right.
So-
Well, thank you, everyone, and
Thank you, Terry.
Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thank you, and stay
All right.
safe.
Yes.
Stay safe.
And
Yes.
submit your business plan for the competition.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I will have that link in there.
All right.
A lot of high school students here, so we definitely
All right. Awesome.
do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah, bye bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So Alvin, Ethan, and Justin, you guys stay behind, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Did you guys enjoy it?
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to take a screenshot of everyone because
Oh, I forgot about that too.
yeah.
Oh, you're muted, by the way. Oh, you're muted.
That's okay. I think sometimes people might not feel comfortable either, but that's okay. I think that we all, I think the most critical part is the recording. So we can stop the
Yeah.
recording now. So I just want to let you guys know that usually when you start recording,